Party people, welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host as always, Jeff Stormer. This week on the show, we are concluding our three-part serialized playthrough of Night's Black Agents Solo Ops, as friend of the show Cole Burkhardt, one of the producers behind the Piece of Cake podcasting network, and the Null and Void podcast, joins us to take on the role of Special Agent LEYLA Khan for a third and final mission, staring down the vampire conspiracy. If you haven't been able to figure it out yet, I love this game a whole lot. Cole is one of my favorite people to play games with. This session turned out super fun. I had a great time recording all three of these episodes. I think you're really going to dig this episode. But first, a few quick things that I want to lay out. One, I hecked up, fam. So I had this big plan to create this serialized narrative across all three of these episodes. And you know what I didn't do in between episodes is read the next game that I would be running. So at the end of Grant's session, I realized that he had this thing about this voicemail from Harry Coleman. So I kind of quickly wrapped that up in the end of the second episode without realizing that that was like the central adventure hook for part 3. So there's a plot inconsistency between these, like my big plan kind of fell through, but there's still 3 great episodes. Just picture it like a production change in between James Bond movies. Or maybe it was a dream sequence. Who knows? It's up for your interpretation. Anyway, as I mentioned in the last few episodes, if you really want to support the show, the best way to do that at this moment is to go into the show notes. There are some incredible mutual aid resources, as well as friends of mine whose income has been impacted. The best way to support the show at this moment is to support them, because supporting my friends is what's making this all worth it at the moment. So go do that. If you send me proof of a donation to any of the causes linked in the show notes, I will send you a very special gift in exchange. And with that said, let's throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. This week, I am joined once again by my good friend Cole Burkhardt. Cole, thank you so much for coming back on Party of One. I'm so excited to have you back on the show again.
Thanks for having me. Love to be here.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So real quick, before we dive in, before we go murdering vampires, why don't you take a moment and let the lovely listeners at home know about all the stuff you've got going on that you might want them to know about?
Oh, I forgot to ask, when is this coming out?
This is coming out probably end of April.
Okay. End of April means that I will be in full swing. We will have at least 2 episodes out of the podcast Null and Void. It is a modern sci-fi audio drama about the hellscape that is capitalism and trying to survive as a queer person of color in a majority white landscape. If you want to go and find us, you can find us on Twitter at Null and Void Pod.
That sounds great. I'm super hyped for it. I've seen a little bit of it on Twitter. Like I backed the Indiegogo. It just sounds super good, and I'm really excited to. It's not out at the time of this recording, which is why I'm talking about like being excited for it, but I'm very excited for it.
Thank you for your support.
So, as I mentioned, this week, this is the final of our 3-part Night's Black Agents 3-part series. We are continuing the story of MI6 agent LEYLA Khan. We are picking up shortly after our previous session. So, Cole, would you like me to give you a rundown of what has happened in the life of LEYLA Khan in the last eventful few weeks?
Sure.
Okay, so LEYLA Khan, MI6 agent, and maybe vampire, maybe thrall. We're not clear.
Play to find out.
Was an MI6 agent who was became convinced of a vampire conspiracy. In investigating that vampire conspiracy, you
found out I was right.
You did. You got it. You mission accomplished. However, the cost of being right here was that you were taken in by a vampire named Jovitso, and for several years you've been a vampire assassin. Since waking up in a hospital in Budapest a few weeks ago, you've been shot, stabbed, chased down by biker bandits. It's been a long couple weeks. Most notably for the purposes of this mission, you've just took out an associate of a very powerful Romanian vampire named Carlisle. Carlisle's associate was attempting to himself summon another vampire, an older, like first generation Romanian vampire who had been staked and buried and was in a position to come back to life.
Mm-hmm.
When our vampiric minion bought his body in an auction and was going to revive him.
As you do.
As you do. When you intercepted it, killed him, killed his vampiric wolf monster minion, killed the vampire itself. Everything's good. Everything's good, raise the banner, except for one small problem. And that is, there's still this voicemail that is haunting you. You got a voicemail from your associate, Harry Coleman, MI6 agent. He was your handler when you were in MI6, real prim and proper type, didn't agree with you on the vampire conspiracy, kind of like let you burn your own bridge, so to speak. Called you a few weeks ago, sounded drunk and terrified, and basically said, you're right, oh god, you're right. And that voicemail's been sitting in your burner phone inbox for the length of this operation, which probably is why when Jimmy Linklaith contacted you, MI6 agent, and said that he was looking into Harry Coleman having gone missing, probably why you were willing to take that case, or why you were willing to talk to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Now, there's been a few weeks of quiet in between you getting chased down by vampires and Jimmy meeting you. Where are you meeting Jimmy, and what have you been up to in the last few weeks?
I have mostly been trying to hang out with Rostami and patching out all of my wounds. I've been fighting for a while and very hurt and still under a couple thralls and stuff, and so I'd like to lick my wounds, so to speak, before
Perfect.
I dive into anything that's probably going to get me shot or stabbed again.
That's fair. So you had, going into this, two problems that will clear right off the bat, which were your battle damage and your vampire's thrall. Because you've had a little time to clean up after the fight. In fact, I think we catch LEYLA in a Hungarian coffee shop. We see an older woman in a very puffy coat get into an unmarked car and disappear, just as a very young, frighteningly young, upsettingly young, baby-faced British, very blatantly, obviously a British intelligence agent, comes and sits across from you and throws you a folder.
They're sending kids these days?
Well, listen, I'm taking a personal investment in this case. Harry was a friend, he was a mentor, and I personally want to make sure that he is okay.
All right, so what have you found out?
Well, he was due for a check-in. He's been deployed in Moscow. He was due for a check-in a week ago, and he has not responded, and MI6 has attempted to contact, and we've made no headway into that matter. MI6 is understandably a little bit hesitant into sending too many resources after going into an agent that was deep undercover, and so we are looking into less non-deniable channels, hence the conversation.
I think LEYLA just picks up the folder and begins LEYLA picks up the folder and just slides it into a jacket pocket without looking at it, and goes, "You've tried all the usual contacts and burner phone numbers, all our normal routes?"
Everything, all of our normal channels have come up null and void. It is a
fuck you.
I didn't mean it to, it started look, it was not intentional, but once I started going down the road, I couldn't stop.
It's okay. I made a podcast with the worst SEO ever, so
the police, my podcast is called Party of One. I get it. We are alike in this. So we've tried all our normal channels. They've come up empty. We need to, simply put, as far as we can go without making our efforts known. We want to keep the FSB out of this, so we can't do too much, which is why we want to bring on someone that we aren't directly associated with, but that knew who Harry was and worked with him and could know the places to shake him down. In exchange, we will. Well, let's put it this way: we are prepared to welcome you back into the fold, to the family, so to speak.
And if I fail, you've got someone else to blame.
He pauses for a moment, and you notice that he doesn't say no to that. He makes no effort to correct you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I want to see if he's like bullshitting me or if he's withholding any other information.
He's clearly telling the truth. Like he definitely is telling that you can tell he thinks of you as an asset more than a person, right? Like that's not exactly. He is definitely trying to be very genuine about finding Coleman, but you'll notice, but like he is a little too eager to.
Like Coleman may not necessarily want them to find him.
Even more so than that, like it seems like he wants to find Coleman more than perhaps is officially noted. Like he wants to make sure that like he wants to burn this asset and confirm that Coleman is dead. Like you get the vibe, like hearing everything that he's saying, the fact that they've gone through their official channels, the fact that they don't want to get involved with FSB. You as a spy know that generally means that MI6 has written him off at that point. Like they're not necessarily going to send freelance agents into a hot zone to try and find an agent. They're just going to write that agent off as gone. So him coming to you feels like this is Jimmy coming to you and not MI6 coming to you.
I think Layla's gonna go like kind of trying to like lead him into it. Will like lean back in her chair and go, what does it matter? He's probably dead anyways. No contact in how many weeks?
Well, 1 week, but that seems to be MI6's stance on it, but
what's yours?
Harry was a mentor to me. I care about him a lot, and he was a good man. He had a wife, he had a life, and I want to be sure before we tell that wife that he died in the field, that he died in the field.
Layla's gonna take a sip of whatever coffee she's drinking and kind of eye this kid and then set her drink down and go, I'm not promising anything, but I'll see what I can do.
We appreciate that. If there's anything you need as far as resources getting into Moscow, any other intel on Harry, please. And he hands you what is like a business card that says like Marcus Finnegan or something. Like it's obviously like a burner identity, but he's like, this is feel free to contact me here. This is the easiest way to get a hold of me specifically and not my superiors and not get bogged down in the red tape.
I quickly enter it into my phone and then I dip the business card in my coffee and stand up and walk away.
Perfect. Flawless. So you've got a folder of information on Harry Coleman. I'll tell you all of what it says. But where do you go to discreetly look at this?
I'm probably still holed up with Rostami. I'm saying this partly because I think I think it's true, and B, because I love paranoid vampire hunters and want to have scenes with them.
Sure.
But yeah, I probably want to go hold up somewhere where someone because I just killed like a pretty big like a
Yeah,
pretty big target. I don't super want to be seen, and
sure.
going to be with a paranoid vampire hunter is probably the best way to not be found.
Yes. So we cut to her apartment, conspiracy boards on the wall, shotguns on wires pointed at the outside door, and these folders are basically spread out. And she's like smoking a clove cigarette and is like, so what? You're just their designated hunter now? Like what is your role in this, Layla?
I didn't agree to anything, but I think Harry may have stumbled onto something, and, why not see if it's good or bad?
Well, I mean, if he stumbled onto something, then frankly, it sounds like MI6 is probably right and he's probably gone.
No, Harry's better than that.
I'm certain you would have said the same thing about yourself a few years ago.
I'm still alive, aren't I?
Well, you're welcome for that.
I still need to thank you for that.
Don't suck any more blood and steal any more souls, and we'll call it even.
I will do my best to promise that.
And that's all I can ask. And so we kind of zoom in on the folders, and we kind of get the map, a map montage of like photos and maps, and essentially, so Harry Coleman was stationed in Moscow. You see that he was sort of ordered to be in Moscow, looking at the Russian military-industrial complex, especially high-tech or unusual weapons developments, cyber intrusions, psych ops, nonlinear warfare. He was a little bit of an obsessive into these things. It's part of what the two of you shared. You have sort of flashes of these conversations with Harry once upon a time. And you notice that, like, in the last few months, he had been running a brokerage firm that connects wealthy Russians with investment and property opportunities overseas. Sanctioned money laundering, but with MI6 backed money so that they can kind of track who takes it. That was what he was doing in Moscow. That's what the files indicate. That indicates like who he was with. And the last recorded contact was a few weeks ago, and it seemed like everything was normal, but almost too normal. Like, as you look through files, you definitely get the vibe of like a lot of this all checks out, everything good, a lot of very short, bland topics of that nature. And the one thing that you look at, you match dates, and you notice that the one thing you notice is the reports get less detailed and more everything is fine. Kind of right, like there's a real hard line into when they kind of go from detailed reports of like, I think this person's up to this, I think this person is playing that person, to everything's fine, no need to raise an alarm. And you notice that like the date of that like hard line, that hard shift in conversation happens to line up really, really closely with that voicemail that you have on your phone.
Yeah, it seems about right. Is there any way to figure out, like, do I know where he'd been located? Do we know, like, do they give any information about, like, the area that he'd been, like, staying, or who he'd been staying with, any of his contacts?
Yes, you do have some of that information. You have a lot of information on like where he was staying in Moscow, like the specific hotels, the specific firms that he was working with. You kind of have all of that information. Everything points to like sort of lower end, easy. You as a spy know these as for lack of a better way to put them, the spy districts in Moscow, the places where you stay, where you
don't want to be known, you don't want people to like, okay, cool. That might make things a bit difficult. We know who he was investigating.
Yes. He was so he was doing actually I don't think so. No,
No.
you don't have a clear picture of that because all of the reports so clearly kind of indicate like everything is fine. Like he was very consciously like keeping those things off of the radar.
Fuck. I, Cole, don't know where to start.
I will point you in the direction of Moscow.
Cool. Let's just get to Moscow then. I'm gonna turn to Rastami and go, so you know any way to get into Moscow undetected?
And she leans in and she's like, well, I have some people that can get you moving, that can get you along the way, but you're also a spy. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you for a cover challenge as you cross over the border into Moscow.
Okay. So I have 2 cover.
Yes.
So I roll what, 2d6 or 1d6?
So you can roll up to 2d6. Roll me 1d6.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you where you're at.
I rolled a 2.
Okay. So at a 2, you're gonna want to probably roll that second dice because so what happens is we see you entering into Moscow, we see the car, and we see them we see Russian like
it's like a
police
checkpoint.
officers. Yeah, there's clearly checkpoints and stuff. You're clearly going to be pulled out and like questioned if you don't like have cover, if you don't have like identity stuff ready yet,
right?
Which is to say, roll in that second d6.
Okay, that one was better. That one was a 4.
Okay, so that puts you at a 6 total.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You make it through without being flagged. You can't be certain the FSB haven't chosen you at random, but
but it's enough.
Yeah, but you're across the border, and that's really what matters. You do have so you get to kind of where he was staying, and you notice that there only seems to be one kind of research clue around. Like, so you have some leads, most notably.
So I guess I might as well use that general ability of I've got I guess that's an investigative ability for research.
Yes. So you are able to find that Coleman was there's a firm, an investment firm in this neighborhood, which is not the kind of neighborhood that would house an investment firm. Cathedral Dome Investments. You have a pretty strong idea that might be. Yeah.
I think with that, I'm gonna definitely go undercover. I'm gonna be looking to make just a couple small investments. I don't know, a fucking who makes investments overseas besides politicians? Right. I will probably try to keep it as vague as I possibly can because it seems like one of those places that I can that aren't gonna ask too many questions, but I'm gonna go in and pretend to be interested in doing business.
Great. You do this, you talk to, you play all the right cards, right? And you clearly kind of get the idea that this is a firm in charge of taking Russian oil and gas money and reinvesting it in the West. It's not, it's pretty clearly illegal, but it is, it's just enough of a gray area where no one asks about it.
Sorry, I'm looking through at all of my abilities and seeing what it was something I would do. I have good electronic surveillance and surveillance in general. I'm wondering if there's a way I can sneak away to go use the bathroom, go powder my nose, and try and find their security room and look through and see if I can confirm that Coleman was here.
Yes, of course. You do exactly that. No one kind of questions you, right? They are the people that you're talking to. The board that you're talking to is kind of it's some very friendly, also frighteningly young folk. who are used to, I'm going to sneak off to the bathroom, make a call to the shady dealers that I'm working with.
And then come back and let you know.
What you hear in your surveillance is like a few people talking about a few things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pair of low-level analysts for this firm talking about like how exciting times it is for the company. You know, it's so much more profitable in the last year or so. The holiday party's going to be outstanding. And you also get word of you hear the name Aaron Schaller, and you hear basically that Schaller is here on site for a change. You know, people talk about like, even though he's ostensibly the owner of the company, he mostly is retired and leaves running the company to other people. The you do hear the name, you know, they say like, yeah, you know, the younger guys like Harry tend to run, you know, the more prominent investments, and Aaron just kind of stops in to smile and shake hands.
Okay. Let's see. If he's I wanted an invite to this office party because it sounds hella fun.
It's great. It's gonna be great.
B, if he's like the what I'm wondering now is if he's the big guy, and if he's behind, I don't want to automatically assume that he's like a vampire, but
he's a person of interest.
But he is a person of interest, which means that I do kind of want to like keep an eye on him.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe like, because I can already tell that these baby-faced interns probably don't know anything.
Yeah. If you're gonna get anything out of them, it's either gonna be the two names that you hear floated about as people running things are Aaron or Michael. You hear the name Michael floated about a few times. Harry, Michael, and Aaron are the three names you hear floated about.
Harry,
which is you're certain is Harry Coleman. Aaron, who is the ostensive owner, and then this name Michael, who they call him Mikey the Kid.
Yeah, that just screams vampire to me. To me, Cole, at least. I think if Aaron is the one who's actually physically around, I'm gonna trail them.
Okay, yeah. You do exactly that. You trail him. So I think what happens is like you kind of trail him for a little bit, and he kind of wanders down a hallway and then kind of stops hard, claps. He's carrying a cane, old bald man, claps a cane and is like, you know, as much as I love feeling important, if you have something to ask me, you could just ask it. And he kind of turns around and stares right at you.
I'm gonna do that like embarrassed fangirl kind of thing that people do of like the I've been caught, but I'm gonna play it off like you're a super cool like business investor and I know so much about you and I'm like awestruck, and slip into like oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to bother you. You are.
Oh, it's fine. I'm messing with you. Please. Do you wanna sit and have a coffee and chat? Let's sit and have a coffee.
Oh, of course. I have so many questions that I'd love to ask you about your work and just how you became who you are today.
Oh, please. There's no need for the interview questions. If you and so he sits and he listens to all of your interview questions.
That I'm just bullshitting.
Yeah. But like, and the vibe you get in talking about them is that like he clearly doesn't know anything and he's perfectly happy. Like, or at least about the official business of things. He doesn't like, you're asking him like businessy questions and he tells you a lot. He's like, oh, I barely touch that stuff anymore. That's really that's Harry and Michael. They handle all of that stuff. I'm here to give you a pretty face. Am I right?
Oh God. Yep. Definitely. Definitely right. Uh, let's see.
Oh, I said I can give you something if you want it.
Sure.
He basically, like, he is more than happy to kind of like tell you essentially that like Harry and Michael are running things, and he's like, so if you have interview questions, I can put you in the office with Michael right now.
Oh my gosh, I would love that so much. I'm new to the area and I haven't quite found my footing yet, and I
That's
would.
And so, like, before you know it, you are in a room with Michael Hestridge, another of these baby-faced boys. This one shockingly reminds you of Jimmy. Same Oxbridge accent, same
Mm,
attitude, same school pin.
mhm. Christ.
Lot of cross. And he's you'd swear they were the spitting image of each other if you didn't know any better. And
See, now that makes me think that they actually are the same person. Or at least
they're
from
not the same
crop.
person, but they're just so interchangeably Oxford
Mm-hmm.
jerks that like.
Mm-hmm.
So in talking to him, you figure out like he has no idea. Coleman hasn't been to work in a week or a few weeks, and frankly, Michaels doesn't seem terribly interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like he's nothing. Coleman, he's nothing. He is a non-entity.
Oh well, that's weird. Has he been working with this corporation for long, or is he a new hire?
He's been here for a few months. A he came in alongside some high level investments. He was brought in as a consultant and just happened to get tied to certain accounts.
Oh, that's interesting. It's so great that you guys have such a commitment to keeping. Oh fuck, what's a good way to say this? To like to makes up some bullshit about how they're so connected and like wanting to see a human face these days, and like how it's good that they have the same people on for all these accounts so you can have accountability and trust and all that bullshit.
And he pretty much cuts right through the bullshit, and he's like, don't like, there's this isn't a newspaper article. You and me both know Schaller is an old fraud, and Coleman is working on something tied to some high level accounts that he just happens to get tied to. Frankly, he's up to something, and it's not really my responsibility. And frankly, Coleman's performance in the last few weeks, ever since he started seeing monsters in the shadows, none of this is my responsibility. My responsibility is to drive a profitable company.
Monsters in the Shadows. That doesn't sound too well. That doesn't sound too good. Have you perhaps maybe sent anyone to check on him if he's having some sort of breakdown?
Not my responsibility. He can handle himself. Dude sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's basically he's happily to like break it down and kind of say he started dating this girl, Olga Agrapova. She got in his head and told him monsters are real, or I don't know. He started making claims. He started acting shifty. He started acting, he got shifty. This is why I, I shouldn't say more because I don't want to get in trouble.
Oh, no, of course. I completely understand, and I know you don't really want to soapbox to a stranger.
Of course not.
Oh, I want to push the Olga thing, but I don't. They say love makes you crazy. I guess, you should avoid. God, this sounds really shitty to say. You should avoid certain types of women, I guess.
So it does sound shitty to say, but he eats it up because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And like, so he's like, yeah, no, Coleman, with no matter how much he loves his wife, he sees he got to talking to Olga, and suddenly he said he was a new man. He fell madly in love, and suddenly
where do you even meet a person like that?
And he absolutely, like, he gives you the name of the bar that they were at. Because he's like, I was there. It was an office thing. And he points you exactly in that direction.
Perfect. I am going to, as politely as possible, excuse myself from this asshole.
Yes.
And go get myself a drink.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I am done playing this asshole. Yeah. So you have an address, a bar where Olga is known to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
When and how do you arrive at this bar?
Probably late night. Oh no, probably. I probably do the thing where I arrive like kind of early, and then I will just order like drinks until it's like last call.
Mm-hmm.
Just to like establish myself in this place, and like check out the bar and scope people out and stuff.
Mm.
So while I get there early, I don't make a move until late night.
Sure. And you see a woman comes in, a few people at the bar yell Olga, and so you get a pretty clear idea that this is Olga. And she is friendly, gets a phone call, looks very, very serious, closes it, kind of looks around, and very obviously like shakes off the seriousness and like looks friendly again. Which it looks less like she's trying to hide something and more like this friendliness is an act. Like she is consciously like blending.
She's a server. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely get that. I think I'm gonna wait until like after a large crowd leaves, or like once she gets like a break in her customers, and then I'm gonna go over and sit myself down at the actual bar.
Okay. Yep. The bar has mostly cleared out. It's very late. Olga is still here, like talking to people and making sure to say things like clearly being like, tell so and so when you see them that Olga said hi tonight. Like doing the thing where you clearly give people reason to say, oh yeah, I talked to Olga here.
Yeah. When she has a moment, I'm going to offer to buy her a drink.
She accepts it. She's more than happy to accept it, and she, cheers you, like toasts you, and takes orders a shot and fires it back of like, the two of you take a shot together of just the worst bottom shelf booze.
Oh, love it. And then slip into, I guess, casual conversation and go, you look like you could have used a drink.
It's been a long couple of weeks.
Not to pry, but is everything okay? I hate to see a pretty lady upset.
Yes, well, business is business, and an associate has gone missing. It's...
Oh my. Well, you never know what lurks in the night.
This is true. Well, there's monsters in the shadows, you know what they say.
I can honestly say that I do.
And she goes, and she looks at you for a long time. This is a moment where I'm going off book because of everything that has happened in the other two episodes, and this feels exciting to me. And she goes, "Yes, I bet you do, Agent Khan."
I was halfway through taking a drink, and just to be so called out, I choked and set my drink down.
Yes, I get it. I've been trying for 5 years to get a spit take on camera.
Well, I'm glad I'm curious as to why my presence is so well known around here, but
Well, around here, not so much. It's well known among. And she kind of pauses, and at that moment you see she pauses, and at that moment you see two people come from a back room, and she kind of makes eye contact. It's a older woman. It's an older woman,
Mm-hmm.
and a typical brute, right? Like
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
muscle guy in
A
an
punch
ill-fitting
boy.
suit. Yeah.
Yeah.
She leans back and she's like, "Well, around these parts is a tough way to say. I would more so describe it as among my employers." And she kind of smiles a little too wide as she kind of says that. And she
Ah. Um, as they come out, I'm gonna take a fuck, hold on. What would Layla have? Um, yeah, I think I'm just gonna take a bar napkin and write my burner phone number down on it, and was like, if you'd like to get another drink sometime, um, and talk about some found friends, you can find me here.
and she kind of she pauses and she's like, "So you're giving associates of the vampire that you've terrorized and whose agents you've murdered your burner phone number."
You seem like someone who might be on my side.
And she pauses and she's like, "Now, what would give you that idea?" And she kind of looks back and causes them to pause and makes the two people behind her pause for a second. She's like, "What exactly gives you that idea?"
We have a associate, um, who I believe has good taste.
Coleman sent you.
Coleman didn't send me.
And she kind of pauses and steps back and she's like, "Okay,
I sent me.
all right, I'm listening." And she shoos them away. I'm listening.
Oh goodness, you're listening, but I have absolutely nothing to say.
Well, so you fill her
So,
in on the Coleman situation.
yeah. So I fill her in about not everything that I've learned, but that he's gone missing, and a couple of old friends of mine wanted to find him, and that there's some shady shit going down with the with just all of this in general. And give a little bit of my backstory too.
And she smiles and she's like, "Oh, please. Okay. All right. Interesting. Well, then perhaps we are on the same side after all." And she kind of shoos them away again and she's like, "Here's what I know, and perhaps you and I could strike a deal. You see, I have been dating Coleman for a few months because Coleman is the head of an investment firm that has stake in a piece of property that I and my associate, Carlisle, right? You've met Carlisle. Carlisle being one of the vampires that you haven't met him directly, but you fucked him over in the last
Yeah, I
adventure.
just small smile and briefly.
Well, Carlisle wants to get some information out of this this piece of property. It's an old research lab. There's something in it that our associates seem to believe is incredibly valuable, and we want it. And Coleman seemed like the best person to get it. So we dated for a while. Perhaps I planted an idea or two in his head. Monsters in the shadows. And we figured it was best to. We figured we could get him to get us access to this piece of property. However, it seemed things backfired a bit, and we lost him. It seems he went rogue. It seems he made a call. It seems he said he was going to handle it. He had his own people, and he was going to
Mhm.
break in and find this information himself. He said he was going off about vampires are real, which, and she kind of laughs, is ridiculous,
Of course.
of course. And he said he was going to go off and do it himself. That's frankly the last I've heard of it. And
That makes things a bit difficult. Do you know what he found?
what he found, I don't, but we know where he found it. And
Okay.
she takes out her own piece of lipstick and on a separate napkin writes down like some GPS coordinates that like you can pull up on your phone, and it pulls you to like a small research base on an island in a lake surrounded by like way out in the middle of the woods.
Well, I do need a new pair of hiking boots.
Don't we all? So here, well, but now we come to the deal part of this equation. Yes, we work in deals in our industry.
Some may say. Oh, okay.
Get us this information. Get us find what. I wish we could be more specific, but frankly, our information is not the best. Find what is on this island, bring it back, meet me here with whatever it is, and my employer, we are a forgiving bunch. I know, but suffice it to say, we can be convinced to be a forgiving bunch.
I just want to know if Coleman is still alive.
If he is, I don't have any information better than you do, but if he is, he'll be there.
Okay. I make no promises, but I'll see what I can find.
This is all we ask.
Can you give me any more information about what I'm looking for, or should I just bring back anything I can get my hands on?
All we know is Carlisle is always in the vested interest of acquiring assets is the wrong word, but like-minded individuals who can add to his numbers. He is lonely is the romantic way to put it. We suspect something or someone, a member of the family perhaps, is there. Alive, dead, undead, unalive, we're none sure. But something or someone we want brought back.
All right, bringing back a person's going to be a little bit tougher than bringing back a manila folder, but
you were already bringing back one person. What's two?
I have two hands.
There you go.
For both this reason. All right, you got yourself a deal.
All right. So we cut to a boat arriving on a lake, and arriving on an island, the research base. It is clearly or apparently abandoned. Like no one's been here a while, right? Like I
had to pay the boat driver like $50 to actually even get me out here onto this island.
Yes, and when he was told where you were going, he was like, "Why would I drive over poisoned toxin water to take you to an abandoned research? I'll rent you the boat for $200." And so you rent the boat, you drive over. It is abandoned. There is overgrown plants everywhere. The only fresh seeming thing are marks gouged in the mud. Several heavy things were dragged from the shore into the woods.
Okay. I can use.
You have tradecraft, which will give you some like spy-like insight.
Yeah, I want to like, if I do like an investigate check, I want to figure out what happened here, and then make my way further in.
So what you have found is like you're looking at these big things, and they're definitely like canisters. There's ridges in the dirt. Somebody has been dragging canisters from the shore. You can kind of see that they're being like dragged and sort of picked up, and sort of they're getting
Like
dragged
moved to a different location.
Yeah. Moved into like into the facility. Like you're getting and you see, like, you kind of are able to follow those, right? Like, you're able to follow those without leaving tracks because you're a spy.
And I make sure that the boat is stashed and unseen from the shore.
You find that they are kind of going to a shed where there are hazmat suits, and there's actually a rowboat alongside the shed. Someone has clearly been like going to the mainland, taking things, canisters, and dragging them. There's a shed here you enter it, and I'm going to ask you for a cool check because you see that there are folding chairs, there's nylon rope, duct tape, and a whole lot of blood stains.
Great. I'm going to, I have a 2 cool, so I rolled, a 5. Great.
Chill runs down your spine. You have fought the undead before, so but you know very clearly that this is clearly a vampire like feeding arrangement, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is clearly everything that people need. But what you also notice there are like small, like there are blood like bags. Like, they're not feeding directly off of the people that they've tied up here. They're clearly like draining this blood and doing something with it, whether they're mixing it with something or injecting it later. Like, clearly something is wrong with it.
We probably see her like moving from the blood-stained chair and over to some of the like counters there, and like seeing the splatter and like analyzing it in her mind.
Yes.
Can I take a hazmat suit?
Yes.
I don't want to put it on right now, but I want to have it just in case.
As you grab the hazmat suit just in time to hear, and like you're kind of half in shadow as you hear like the shed door of this like feeding chamber kind of start to open a little bit, and like you hear dragging behind you and like a grunting, like a very like gurgly grunting.
Cool. There's no place for me to hide in here.
You could probably find a spot. I mean, there's probably some shadows that you could at least crouch in.
Yeah, I'm gonna crouch, confirm that there's only one person, and then when I have time, I'm going to, jump them, I think.
Okay. So give me a conceal roll.
Yeah. Ooh, that is also 5.
All right. You have to lay low for a little while. You see a not quite zombie. Not quite definitely like a rotting sort of zombie. Zombie's probably the closest way to describe them. Soaked body, rotting flesh, dragging a giant barrel, and they start grabbing these like blood pouches off of the wall and like grabbing them and throwing them over their shoulder, and like it takes a while, but you at least have time. You have like he hasn't noticed you. So you have time to either jump him, shoot him, trail him, whatever you want to do.
Oh, yeah, I am going to trail him then. Because I was thinking it was like he was dragging in like a body or something. But now I know that the groaning is coming from this, like, thrall zombie. I'm going to just... I feel safe enough in them being dumb enough that they're unawares that I can just follow them.
Yep. So you trail him. He's dragging these blood things, and you follow him. Give me an infiltration roll.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a 4.
Okay. Yeah. So you there's a few moments where you're almost caught, and it's because there are more of these like zombie things like stalking the island. You have to lay low. You have to probably take one of them out and like.
Yeah, we see her like crouched behind some foliage, and one steps like directly in front of her.
Mhm.
And as it like turns to look, she just shoves a knife through its brain. And as it collapses, she drags it back into the underbrush.
And you follow. You follow, and you go into this lab, and there's just like bloody handprints on the wall. There are broken windows. Clearly, there was at some point there's no other way to describe it. There was a riot inside of this lab, and a lot of people, well, I'd say died, but they seem to be walking among you. You do finally get a good look at this lab worker, and he's wearing a tattered lab coat. Or rather, the zombie is wearing a tattered lab coat.
Does it still have like a name tag on it?
It does. It's got like the full outfit. Like clearly, all of these people are clearly like researchers.
Yeah.
That were converted into something unholy.
Yeah.
You get inside, and there is strung up with like IVs and there are half-empty barrels. There are like 2 or 3 people with handcuffs on.
Strung up like blood bags?
No, actually, they are handcuffed to like dining room chairs. There's a makeshift dining room set up in one of these like lab centerpieces.
Oh, good.
You recognize Harry Coleman immediately. There's 1 or 2 other people in like similar outfits. But like Harry Coleman is there. Actually, I'm gonna veto that and say it's just Harry Coleman. Harry Coleman is there, like handcuffed to a chair, and sitting at a makeshift throne with IVs attached and several half-empty barrels of like a chemical that is being mixed in these blood bags. Is you've never seen a blue vampire before, or like a sort of quite like the neon shade of blue that this vampire was, but it definitely seems to be injecting blood in a way that you've never seen a vampire inject blood. And like he's just whispering like, hurry, I need I need the blood to stay. Just do you? Oh my god! This is why I don't count on zombies. This is why zombies. Oh my god! And Harry Coleman is like rolling his eyes, and he's like, again with this.
My first instinct is to not step into this.
Okay.
My first instinct is to go cut off his supply, which means as like incognito as I can, take out as many zombies as I can.
Okay, give me a fighting roll for that, or fighting, and I'll allow you to add your shooting dice to that, so you can roll more than 2 dice.
What is my shooting die? Is that
also 2? It's also 2.
Okay, I'm just gonna do 1 and 1 for now. So I'll roll 2.
1 and 1, and then if you want to roll more dice, like I'll tell you where you're at.
Oh, I rolled a 5 and a 6. I like these die.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So, you got an 11. If you get a 13, you can clear out all of the zombies. At an 11, you clear out like most of. I'll say you clear out all the zombies either way. 11's good enough. You clear out the zombies. At a 13, you do it without being like obviously detected, except for the one zombie that was like clearly setting up the supply of chemicals.
Okay. I will add another. Oh, I don't want to use up all my fighting. So could I use another shooting?
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, what would be better for fucking up vampires?
Either one's fine. You're a spy. Like
cool.
you know how to shoot a vampire. You've got like UV bullets, like we're in Blade.
I got a 2. So
that's a 13.
Barely sneaked under.
So the only zombie that's left is the one that's like plugging in this vampire.
Yeah, Sorry, I kind of imagine like the neon blue vampire is like monologuing on his throne, and just in the background we see her just like stabbing and just taking out zombies.
That's exactly what it is. And I think halfway through, like Harry sees you and is like
Mhm.
very clearly trying to like play it cool. He's like, So but finally, like he gets up and he like unplugs himself from the IVs and he's like stretching. He's like, oh my god, I hate that they got me hooked on the synthetic stuff. It's just not the same. But and it just, but I'm here now. And he's like talking to Harry. Pulls up a chair. I'm here now, and that means, finally, I'm full. I'm finally ready to. And his fangs start to come out. I'm finally ready to feast.
Wait, hold on. So he gets hopped up on all this blood. He's full, and now he wants to eat.
Yes, because you noticed, like, as he was getting plugged in, you noticed that, like, he's much more, like, physically filled out than he was.
Oh,
like, he was,
okay.
So, like, literally, they have to, like, this synthetic blood is, like, filling his body so that he can, like, stay, like, replenish.
Okay. Cool.
This is eating for fun, not for living.
Yep. Yeah. This is like getting full on breadsticks and then just eating dessert.
Yeah.
Cool. I am at that point going to make myself known by shooting this fucker in the head.
Do it.
Cool. All right, guys, come on. That's a 4.
That's not great.
Mm-hmm.
You shoot and like you catch him like dead in the heart, and he just kind of like stumbles over and stands up. Roll one more d6 as like Coleman kicks back and kicks a table at him.
Cool. Come on. That is another 4.
Okay. Yeah, so he kicks a table onto him, he falls back, he stands up, like you shot him in the heart with a UV bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And he is now just standing up and he is fine, clearly. And as this is happening, you see that there are like manacles on the throne that he was sitting in. There's like one of those you know, like the headpieces they put on Wolverine. I don't know what you would even call them, but like it's like a Cerebro type thing that they put down on the head. One of those types of deals.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like a hair dryer that you see in like a 50s thing.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
It's very clearly like you're clearly seeing this as like a sci-fi lab.
Yeah.
There's like a name tag on it that says Koche, and clearly like all the signs point to this being some sort of genetically engineered super vampire that seems to have broken out from his coffin, or seems to have broken out from being a lab rat and turned into the head of the head of the fortress.
That's not great.
And he's just stands up and he like touches at his heart and he's like, ow.
Sorry to interrupt
Rude.
Dinner.
Oh, this wasn't dinner. This was dessert. And he like, Coleman is like back on his back trying to like tear through the chair as this vampire like lurches towards you.
Well, it seems I'm a little late for dinner and a show, but why not try and run off that meal, huh? And I'm gonna like taunt this vampire closer, and more away from Coleman.
He's absolutely he buys into it 100%, and he like lunges at you. Give me an athletics, and I'll let you add evasion to that.
Cool. Oh, it's a 7 total. I rolled a 2 and a 5.
That is enough to like keep him occupied long enough for Coleman to like break his handcuff. But the two of you are now you're cornered. He's kind of behind him. I'm gonna say take 2 bonus dice towards fighting, but if you don't succeed at this fighting roll, if you get an 8 or less on this with your 4 dice, it is over.
With 4? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Between the two of you, you're facing this down once and for all.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's 6, a 5, a 3, and a 1.
15?
Oh, God, math.
15. 11 plus
15.
4.
Yeah, 15.
Yeah. Perfect. Describe the killing blow on this genetic super vampire.
Huh. Okay, so you mentioned the, like, Cerebro helmet.
Yeah.
And I imagine there are a whole bunch of wires and stuff.
Yep.
I imagine for this fight, we see a whole lot of, like, LEYLA, like, leading him around the space, and kind of, like, almost like a cat toy, like, the idea of a cat toying with a mouse, and that they, like, almost just get you, and then they race off to, like, try and get you again, and you keep almost letting them grab you.
Mm-hmm.
Until that point, they've become so tangled up in the wires, she's able to, like wrap one around his throat and use it to decapitate him.
Exactly what it takes. And I think as that's happening, Coleman, like, flips a switch, and it, like, electroshocks at the same.
Yes.
And he just, like, his head comes off, he explodes, there's gore everywhere. And you are left standing. This vampire is gone, but and so I think we have one closing scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have one closing scene.
I think
as it's the two of you kind of standing on the shore.
Yeah.
So I guess I owe you an apology.
LEYLA lights up a cigarette. Yeah, I guess you do.
Well, on top of it, can I bum a cigarette off of you? Because I've had a rough week.
Tosses the pack to him. You know your girlfriend's a vampire, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I put that together, but now that you say it, it checks out. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I get for cheating, honestly.
Yeah, a little bit. Speaking of, people are wondering where you are.
Yeah, I bet they probably are. But
so
what?
They think you're dead, right? So you don't have to come back. I can tell them whatever you want me to.
Then what happens now? And he kind of sits and he's like, I guess you and I have to have a talk, because if it's all true, and he kind of gestures to all of the, like, viscera that is covering him, it's all true, then what the fuck? Why are we running fake investment firms? What is happening here? What happens now? We can't go back to shore, because I'm assuming if you're here, and I'm assuming if you knew that she's a vampire, that means they probably sent you here, which means they're probably waiting for us at the shore, probably with guns.
Well, they did ask me to bring back... Oh, I should have specified whether or not they wanted him alive or not. Well, they did ask me to bring back their buddy in there, or at least tell of the research that was going on. But, I mean, we have a boat, and there are plenty of other shores we can go to. If you want, you can join me for now until you get back on your feet, and we can delve into all of this. Or I can tell you that the folks on that island were criminally insane and dealing with things beyond whatever God had planned, but there are no such thing as vampires, and you can go back to your life. I'm not going to be the one to make that decision for you.
And he takes another long drag of his cigarette, and he's like, so what shore are we headed to next, then?
Tell you what, let's go... Oh, fuck, maps. I hear the UK is nice this time of year, once they've figured out what's going on with Brexit. I hear it's a pretty nice... And all that chaos, we could probably sneak in.
Yeah, that's probably not the hardest place to sneak into at this exact moment. And the two of you get onto a boat and sail off into the night, and that is the end of our Knights Black Agents 3-parter. Cole, thank you so much for playing this with me. This was a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was so much fun. So real quick, before we wrap up, where can people find you and your work online?
You can find me on Twitter at King Coal Miner, cold spelled Cole, or you can find a lot of the work that I've done. I haven't updated that website because I do a lot of stuff, but you can find most of the work I'm doing on coleburkhardt.card.co, and that's card with 2 R's.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for doing the show. This was a delight. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me, and thanks again to Cole for coming on the show. That game was just absolutely so much fun. What a great 3-part series of episodes, 3 wonderful guests, 3 wonderful games. I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. I cannot say that enough. Thank you for listening. Thank you for playing with me, Cole. Thank you again to Grant and Biz. Thank you all 3 of you. This was a wonderful experience. I had a whole blast of fun with it. Be sure to check the show notes for more information about Night's Black Age and Solo Ops, the Piece of Cake Podcasting Network, the Null and Void Podcast, and be sure to follow Cole on Twitter at King Cole Miner. Cole is also, I should mention, a phenomenal podcast producer and editor who is available for commissions. A lot of people, I think, are considering making podcasts or getting into podcasting at this moment. I really cannot emphasize enough that a good editor, a good producer, someone who can handle the behind-the-scenes aspect is incredibly, absurdly valuable. And I can tell you that Cole is professional and quick and they know what they're talking about extremely well. And so if you are looking for a podcast editor, producer, get in touch with them. Then, after you follow them on Twitter at King Cole Miner, follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast, join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord, head to our merch store at bit.ly/partyofonemerch, and check out All My Fantasy Children, a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast on the One Shot Podcast Network, powered by you. Every week, my best friend Aaron Catano Saez and I take a listener-submitted prompt, we spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. Newest episodes drop every Friday-ish at oneshotpodcast.com. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. Speaking of phenomenal editors and producers without whom the show would not exist, I think it's safe to say that we would not have gone on for 200 episodes were it not for Jen Frank running things behind the scenes. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Mega Rain featuring the D&D Sluggers, and the Party of One logo is by Evan Rowland. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates coming onto the show and press coverage, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And I think that's it. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.